Welcome to Living Aligned with Betty, presented by Betty Arteaga Muriel, certified parent coach and founder of Your Parenting Story, LLC.
Friends, and welcome back. I am Betty Arteaga Muriel, certified parent coach and founder of Your Parenting Story, LLC, where I help parents find rhythm, connection, and purpose by creating lives and relationships that truly feel aligned. You're listening to Living Aligned with Betty, and this is episode 2, Embracing Discomfort, Finding Flow, Choosing Growth over Comfort. I'm so happy you're here with me today because we've officially made it to day 20 of the 100 Days Aligned Challenge. Take a deep breath with me here. Let's take a second, right? We're 1/5 of the way through this journey. 20 days of showing up, 20 days of building momentum, 20 days of learning, stretching, and rediscovering what it really means to live aligned. If you've been following along since day one, you know the first 10 days were all about consistency, laying the foundation, building structure, and proving to ourselves that we can keep promises even when motivation fades. But this last 10 days, they've been a whole different story. Days 11 through 20 were about stretching, literally and figuratively. And I can say that word right. They were about leaning into discomfort, doing what felt awkward or even a little scary, and trusting that on the other side of resistance is a new level of peace and flow. So today's check in is about exactly that, embracing discomfort and finding flow. It's about what happens when we stop running from the cold, from the resistance, from the hard moments, and instead we step toward them with curiosity and courage. And as always, whether you're doing this challenge with me or just, tuning in for some inspiration, my hope is that you'll find pieces of your own journey reflected here. And maybe a gentle nudge to keep growing, even when it gets uncomfortable. So grab your water, let's take a break, let's take a little breath, and let's dive in. These last 10 days have been such a ride. Yeah. When I first stepped into this phase of the challenge, I thought that the hardest part will be the cold showers. And honestly, they weren't that bad. My shower doesn't even get that cold. So it wasn't exactly like an ice bath moment. And in fact, I thought to myself, okay, maybe I'm gonna have to, at some point on this challenge, go and do an actual cold plunge. But here's what I didn't see coming. My real stretch had nothing to do with the water. The stretch showed up as emotional discomfort. Somewhere around the middle of this block, I hit a wall. My nervous system just said, nope, we're done for a minute. My nervous system went in like a full on shutdown mode. Out of nowhere, this wave of sadness and exhaustion came over me. You know, that kind of heavy sadness that feels like it's pressing on your chest. And I could feel myself start to pull away from the work, and from the post and from myself. And so I slowed down. I didn't try to force myself through it or pretend that it wasn't there. I gave myself permission to sit in it, to breathe, to rest. And that's when I realized this was my cold shower. This was the stretch I actually needed. And in that moment, I realized what was really happening. My nervous system wasn't asking for rest, it was testing me. It was trying to keep me safe the only way it knew how, by quitting, by shutting down before I could fail, by whispering, "You've done enough. No one will notice if you stop showing up." That's what all parents do. They protect us from disappointment by convincing us to stop before we see what we are truly capable of. But this time, I didn't quit. My new story, the one I've been rewriting through this journey, reminded me that pushing through doesn't have to mean pushing with force. It means pushing with grace. And pushing with grace looks like meeting myself exactly where I am. It looks like showing up real, authentic, completely in pieces if I have to, but still showing up. It looks like choosing grace over perfection, presence over performance, and alignment over avoidance. So when I look back at the post from days 11 through 18, 19, I realized this wasn't just a week of doing hard things. It was a week of staying with myself when everything in me wanted to run. Day 11 reminded me that alignment isn't about getting everything right. It's about building daily rhythms that can regulate us so we can model regulation for our kids. Day 12 was lighter, a day of connecting, moving, laughing, and pouring into community. That reminder that healing doesn't have to happen alone. Day 13 brought the truth that alignment isn't just about habits and routines, it's about joy, connection, and the moments that remind us why we do this work in the first place. Day 14 was practical. Alignment starts with preparation, right? I talked about meal prep and how simple structure creates space for more peace and time in our week. And then day 15 was the hardest. A really, really sad day. I felt low, I felt heavy, I felt very emotional. And that's when I realized alignment also means giving yourself grace in the middle of the mess. It's not about fixing your feelings, it's about sitting with them. Day 16 became a day for rest and reflection. I just share a quick post, a breath in a picture form. And sometimes alignment looks like silence, right? Day 17 brought a little playback, a reminder that alignment is riding the wave and welcoming joy when it comes. Even small bursts of laughter or, playing can shift the whole day. Day 18 felt powerful. It was about like breaking old stories and giving yourself permission to live a new one. Letting go of identities that no longer fit and choosing to show up as the woman I am becoming, not the one I used to be. And now, moving into day 19 and now 20, is about doing something different. Allowing people to help, letting connection be support instead of resistance, and harnessing those moments of motivations, like little nitro boots in Mario Kart. Because honestly, alignment is a lot like that, like burst of energy, followed by recovery, and then followed by flow. It's not about perfection, it's about rhythm. And that's what this stretch has really been, a conversation between my old pattern and my new truth. My old self would have quietly quit, my aligned self stayed gently. I didn't push through, I pushed with grace. And in that choice, I proved to myself that alignment isn't about being perfect, it's about being in integrity with my word. Excuse my little helper here. With my intention, right? Keeping my word with my intention, with my heart. Because the work isn't just showing up when it's easy. It's showing up when your nervous system is screaming for comfort and choosing to stay anyway with love and with grace. When I look back at this past 10 days, I can see how much my understanding of what it really means to show up as my best self has deepened. I used to think being my best self meant everything flowing easily, the perfect morning routine, a calm mind, all the boxes checked. But these 10 days have shown me something truer. Growth doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like resistance. Sometimes it looks like tears and lots of tears. Because showing up as your best self isn't about staying calm all the time. It's about finding your way back when things fall apart. The biggest lesson for me was learning that grace can carry me further than pressure ever will. My old way of doing things was built on force, on hustling, proving, performing. But grace says you can keep your word and still be human. When I gave myself permission to be both committed and imperfect, something inside of me softened. I realized that staying in integrity with myself didn't mean pretending everything was fine. It meant showing up honestly even when I wasn't okay. That shift from force to grace has changed how I see everything. I learned that my nervous system wasn't trying to sabotage me, it was testing my truth. It was asking, will you still hold your word when you're not in control? When the plan falls apart? When your emotions take over? And for the first time, my answer was yes. Not a perfect yes, not a performative yes, but a real grounded yes. A yes with messy hair, puffy eyes, soft heart, and an open spirit. That's the kind of self leadership that I want to model. Not the version that looks good on paper, but the one that feels true in your body and your heart. And I have goosebumps right now. I also learned that discomfort isn't punishment, it's information. Every hard moment had something to teach me. The sadness reminded me to listen. The fatigue reminded me to slow down. And the resistance reminded me that growth takes resilience. And the follow through reminded me that I am capable of hard things with gentleness. When I think about growth now, I don't picture a straight line, I picture a wave. Sometimes high, sometimes low, always moving, always flowing. Becoming my best self isn't about holding a perfect posture. It's about returning to my rhythm again and again. And here's another truth that landed very deeply for me this week. Self trust isn't built when everything's easy. It's built in the moments you could have quit, but you didn't. That's when trust anchors in. When you hold your word, not because it's convenient, but because it's sacred, because it's who you are becoming. So, distant days, the sadness, the softness, the laughter, the cold showers that weren't even that cold, they've all been invitations to return to grace. To remember that being your best self doesn't mean being perfect. It means being present. It means keeping your word, even when you show up in pieces. It means staying kind to yourself while you grow. And maybe most importantly, it means believing that healing and growth can coexist, that you can stretch and be gentle, that you can show up broken and somehow still be whole, and that grace isn't a backup plan, is the way forward. One of the most powerful things I've noticed in this first 20 days is that I'm no longer trying to become someone else. I'm remembering who I've always been underneath the exhaustion, the fear, the perfectionism, the need to prove something. This challenge has held up a mirror, and what I see now is a woman who's learning to trust herself again. Not because she's doing everything right, but because she's learning to keep her word with grace, with compassion, and with follow through. Every time I choose to show up, even when uncomfortable, I'm casting a vote to that version of me. The one who is consistent but flexible. The one who can hold space for others, because she finally knows how to hold space for herself. The one who no longer needs to perform strength because she's building it quietly, moment by moment. And that has shifted how I see myself in every role I play. As a woman, I am learning that softness isn't weakness, is power in its most honest form. As a mother, I'm realizing that my kids don't need a perfect mom, they need a present one. They learn more from how I regulate and recover than from any advice I could give them. And as a coach, I'm learning more anchored than ever in my truth. I'm not leading from theory, I'm leading from lived experience. From the moments when I almost quit but chose grace instead. So these 20 days have changed how I measure success. I'm no longer about the checklist or the flawless routine. It's about integrity. It's about how I speak to myself when things get hard. It's about whether I can still see my worth on the days when nothing feels like it's working. I'm becoming someone who trusts her own timing, someone who can feel the discomfort, hold the emotion, and still move forward, not out of force, but out of faith. That's the woman I'm becoming through this process. The one who no longer needs everything to be perfect before she begins, the one who shows up in the middle of the mess, knowing that her presence, imperfect, honest, and real, is enough. As I move into this next phase of the challenge, I can already feel something shifting. It's subtle but strong. Last 10 days have taught me how to stay grounded in grace when things get hard. Now, this next 10 are inviting me into clarity. The theme for days 21 to 30, it's all about creating space in my mind, space in my heart, and even space in my schedule. The practical challenge is going to be a digital detox. But what I'm really detoxing from is noise. You know that constant hum of information, comparison, distraction, the endless scroll that keeps us slightly overstimulated but slightly disconnected, like all at once. That's the one I'm stepping away from. Because even when my body is rested, my mind can still be running. And I've realized that I can hear my own intuition. That deep, steady voice that guides me if I'm always tuned in into everyone else's. So the next 10 days are about returning to stillness on purpose. That doesn't mean disappearing or avoiding the world. It means being intentional about what I allow in. It means noticing when I'm reaching for my phone instead of my breath. It means asking myself, what am I trying to avoid feeling right now? When I fill every quiet moment with scrolling, I miss the chance to really meet myself. The unfiltered, uncurated version of me that lives in the pauses. And I want to meet her more often because that's where creativity comes from. That's where clarity is born. That's where grace and flow return after a long stretch of resistance. I've noticed that every time I start to find a rhythm, life gives me like an invitation to go deeper, to not just maintain the progress, but to integrate it. And that's what this next stretch feels like an integration. The digital detox isn't about stepping away from life. It's about stepping into a more fully, stepping into whole without distractions, without the constant pull to perform, and without the noise of everyone else's opinions in my head. I want to feel my own rhythm again. I want to hear my own thoughts clearly. I want to be present, so present that even in the smallest moments, a laugh, a meal, a quiet drive, that those moments feel like medicine. When I say digital detox, it might sound simple, less screen time, right? Fewer notifications, more peace. But this isn't really about the technology, it's about energy. It's about what happens when I stop reaching for something outside of myself every time there's a moment of stillness. Because that's what I've noticed. Like, it's the habit of reaching. I reach for my phone when I'm uncomfortable. I reach for music or noise when silence feels too loud. I reach for distraction when my thought gets messy or my emotions get heavy. And the truth is, in those moments of reaching, those are often my nervous system saying, I don't feel safe being with myself right now. We live in a world that constantly overstimulating, where our nervous systems are ping 100 times a day. We process more input in 24 hours than generations before us did in weeks. No wonder we're tired, we're anxious, and we're disconnected. So these next 10 days are about learning to sit in the silence again, to rebuild safety in stillness. To be honest, that can be very uncomfortable for me. When the noise quiets down, you start to hear what's underneath, the thoughts, the worries, the things you've been avoiding. But that's also where healing starts. For me, isn't just a challenge to spend less time online. It's an invitation to come home to myself, to notice how often I looked outward for validation, for feedback, for proof that I'm doing enough instead of looking inward for peace. And that's a pattern I see not just in myself, but in so many parents, women, and entrepreneurs. We're constantly on. We're plugged into everything and everyone, giving, producing, responding until there's nothing left to give to ourselves. But here's what I've learned through this journey so far: presence is a practice. It doesn't happen by accident, it's created by intention. So I want to practice being fully here with my daughter, my partner, my baby doser, my body, my breath, not half here while my mind is crawling through a to do list or replaying something I saw online. And when I catch myself reaching, because I know I will, I'm going to pause and I'm going to ask myself, what am I really craving right now? Is it rest, connection, inspiration, comfort? Then I'll try to give myself that directly instead of reaching for the shortcut. Because every time I choose presence over distraction, I'm teaching my nervous system that it's safe to be here, safe to feel, safe to rest. That's the real detox. Not only from the screens, but from the belief that I need to escape my own life to find relief. I want to create enough quiet that my soul can breathe again. I want to walk outside without headphones sometimes. I want to look at the sky more often than I look at my screen. I want to cook dinner without multitasking. I want to feel time stretch again instead of watching it like slip through my fingers while I'm busy doing everything and feeling nothing. Because peace doesn't come from doing less, it comes from being more present in what you're already doing. These next 10 days are about remembering that presence is a form of power and that in the stillness, there's a wisdom I can hear when my world is too loud. So here's what this next stretch of the challenge looks like in the practice. I'm calling this next 10 days my season of quiet focus. You know, a time to declutter my digital world, clear the noise, and come back to what's real. That doesn't mean disappearing from my work, or the community. Not at all. I have plans for this week. It means showing up with more intention, creating instead of consuming, connecting instead of comparing. And here's what that looks like for me. One, intentional boundaries with technology. I'm putting limits on how and when I use my phone. No scrolling first thing in the morning, not falling asleep to videos at night. And instead, my mornings are going to start with silence, some stretching and breathing, and then setting my intentions before I reach for anything external. During the day, I'm going to create what I call going to be like sacred windows. These are going to be the time blocks where I'm going to check my messages or create content, and then I'm going to put my phone down. And my husband is listening as I record this, and I know that he is going to remind me to do all of this. I want to break the habit of being constantly reachable so I can be more deeply present when I am available. And once a week, I'm going to take a full digital Sabbath. No screen, no notifications, no scrolling, and let's shake it off because I feel it as I say it. It's gonna be just like. And then two, I'm reclaiming my time and attention. I want to reclaim my attention as an act of self love. I'm noticing how much time I lose to distraction. 5 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and how that time adds up to hours and hours of my life. So here's so for these 10 days, I'm going to use my energy differently. When I reach for my phone, I'm gonna pause and redirect. Maybe I'm gonna journal or I'm gonna stretch, go outside, or just sit and breathe. I'm gonna make a little list for myself of alternatives for me to do if I'm gonna reach for my phone. I want to retrain my body to rest in stillness instead of stimulation. Number three, I'm gonna be creating real connection. I want to replace the digital noise with real connection. So that means more face-to-face moments, even small ones, and more laughter with my daughter, more meaningful conversations with my partner, more hugs, more shared meals, more time to spend actually looking at each other. Social media can make us feel connected, but it's not the same as presence. And I'm craving like presence. And I want to model that, especially for my kids. I want them to see that peace doesn't come from Wi Fi, it comes from being here together in this moment. Four, I'm listening for inspiration instead of forcing productivity. Like in the quiet, I want to listen to ideas, my ideas. I want to listen to intuition, to what feels right to me. As a creator and a coach, I know that inspiration doesn't come from the constant effort. It actually comes from the space, from walking away a bit and breathing and letting like the next idea kind of find you. So I'm not trying to do more in this space. I'm trying to be more grounded, more curious, more open. Five, I'm honoring my word with grace. And most importantly, I'm committing to continue showing up, not perfectly, but faithfully. To keep sharing the truth of this journey, the real, unfiltered part, not just the polished one. Because this 100 days challenge isn't about building habits, it's about building trust with myself, with my audience, and with life itself. This next 10 days will be about creating the space to breathe, think, and feel again. And I know myself, I'll probably have, moments when I want to grab my phone, check my messages, scroll down, feel that silence. But when that happens, I'll remind myself presence is the real luxury. It's what so many of us are craving, the ability to be where we are, to actually experience our lives instead of just documenting them. So my intention for days 21 through 30, it's simple but sacred to me. Be fully here. Listen more than I speak. Create from overflow, not obligation. Find joy in the ordinary. Because when I live that way, everything flowers again. My energy, my creativity, my relationship, and even my business. That's what this next 10 days are about. Less noise, more presence. Less proving, more peace. And I have a feeling that by the time I reach day 30, I'll see that this kind of stillness wasn't a pause in my growth. It, it was the growth. And as I step into this next phase of quiet focus, I like it when it sounds like that. I want to invite you to take a moment and check in with yourself too. You might not be doing the 100-day challenge right now, but we are all navigating our own versions of growth, our own seasons of stretching, healing, or slowing down. So here's what I want to ask you. Where in your life are you being called to create a little more space? Maybe it's space in your day, in your mind, or even your heart. Is there an area of your life that feels a little too noisy, where you've been reaching for distractions instead of connection? Or maybe, like me, you've been noticing that your nervous system gets overwhelmed sometimes, and what you actually need is less stimulation and more stillness. I want you to take a breath and really ask yourself, what will your peace look like for me right now? What will peace look like for me right now? What will it sound like? And what small step could I take to move closer to that feeling? And if you want to share your reflections, I would love to hear them. Send me a message, share your thoughts in the comments, or tag me if you're joining in this digital detox. Let me know what resonates for you. What part of this journey feels familiar? What part you're exploring in your own way? Because this isn't just a challenge for me, it's an ongoing conversation about what it means to live honestly, intentionally, and with grace. If you've been following this series, you probably noticed that I don't share these updates as, polished how to guides. I share them as life experiences, real life, real emotions, and the real lessons. And that's because I want this to feel like a two-way journey. It's not me teaching. It's both of us growing together. So if you've been sitting with your own version of discomfort, whether that's emotional, physical, or even spiritual, maybe this is your reminder that you're not alone in it. We're all learning to stretch, to soften, and to stay present in the process. And if something I said today has sparked something in you, if you're curious about how to find your rhythm again, how to bring more calm and clarity into your life, I'll love to speak with you. You can book a curiosity call with me. It's a space where we explore what's happening in your world right now and to see what support might look like for you. We can talk about parenting, personal alignment, nervous system regulation, or just, how to reconnect with the version of you that feels more at peace. You can find the link in the description or in the link of my bio. And please, if you're finding value in this series, share it. Send it to a friend who might need a little reminder that it's okay to slow down. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for each other is remind one another that we're all human and we're all doing the best that we can to stay connected with ourselves while we grow. As we close out today's episode and this 20-day milestone, I just want to take a deep breath with you. So, whatever you are right now, if you're driving, keep your eyes open, cooking as well, walking, or maybe you're just sitting quietly. Inhale with me. And exhale slowly. You did it. We did it. 20 days. That is 20 opportunities to show up, 20 days of building trust with ourselves, 20 days of learning progress isn't always linear. Sometimes it loops, it pauses, it redirects, but it's still progress. When I began this 100 days aligned challenge, I wasn't expecting this was gonna be the day 20. I thought it would be about, just consistency, showing up, tracking habits, building rhythm. And yes, it has been about that, but it's also been something far deeper. It's been about remembering who I am when the structure falls apart. In these 20 days, I've learned that true growth rarely looks glamorous. It's quiet, it's humbling, it's emotional, and sometimes downright uncomfortable. But underneath that discomfort is where peace lives. And peace doesn't always mean calm, sometimes it just means being okay with the storm. And I've also realized that what we call discomfort is often just expansion. It's our nervous system adjusting to a new level of capacity. Now you're going to have more love, more honesty, more truth, more courage, right? But we don't fear the cold, we fear what it brings up in us. And yet, every time that we choose to breathe, to stay, and to move through it, we expand what's possible for us. And that's what these first 20 days have done for me. They've expanded my capacity to feel deeply, to rest when I need to keep my word when I don't want to lead with grace, not perfection, to hold space for others without losing myself. And I just want to say thank you, truly thank you for being here, for walking alongside me, for witnessing this journey and not, just as the highlight reel, but as a living, breathing process of becoming. Because if there's one thing I hope you take from all of this, it's that growth doesn't have to be beautiful to be meaningful. Some days your progress will look like movement. Other days it will look like stillness. Some days it will look like doing the hard thing, like a cold shower or an uncomfortable conversation. Other days it will look like pulling back the covers and just letting yourself feel. Both count. Both matter. This challenge has reminded me that transformation doesn't come from effort alone, it comes from honesty. It comes from showing up in your truth, even when your truth is messy or raw. And I'm realizing that that's what flow really means. Flow isn't, about ease, it's about surrender. It's the moments you stop fighting what it is and start moving with it, trusting that even the detours have purpose. For me, embracing discomfort, finding flow has become more than just the theme of this episode. It's a way of living. It's learning peace isn't in the absence of struggle, it's the presence of grace. It's allowing yourself to be seen, tired, joyful, anxious, inspired, and knowing that all of it belongs. All of it. So as I look toward the next 10 days, days 21 through 30, my intention is simple: to continue choosing presence, to keep listening to what my body and soul are asking for, to keep walking this path with openness, honesty, and heart. And my hope for you, whether you are a parent, a coach, a creator, or simply someone navigating your own becoming, is that you give yourself permission to show up imperfectly, but wholeheartedly. Let yourself be in the process. Let yourself be human. Let yourself rest when needed and rise when called. Because every small act of showing up is building a version of you that is stronger and softer and more rooted in truth. So, here for the next 10 days, the detox, the stillness, the quiet, reconnection. Here's to the moments we catch ourselves reaching for distraction and choose to breathe instead. Here's to the grace that finds us when we're standing in the middle of our mess and reminds us you are growing, you are doing it, and this is enough. And before we end, I just want to say thank you again for listening, for sharing, for showing up. Your messages, your reflection, and your energy means so much to me. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who might need a reminder that it's okay to slow down, that growth can be gentle, and that even when life gets loud, we can still find our flow. And if you're curious about what this work could look like for you, if you want to learn how to bring more grace, intention, and connection into your life or your parenting, I'll love to talk. You can book a curiosity with me and Dozer, and the link is gonna be in the description or it's also in the link on my bio. And until next time, thank you for being a part of this journey. Here's to embracing discomfort, finding flow, and continuing to choose growth over comfort. I'll see you on day 30, but until then, keep taking those aligned steps one day at a time.